everybody, and welcome to How to Personalize with Monograms using your heat press. I'm Courtney Kibitza, and I'll be your host for today. Now today we're going to talk a lot about how to personalize items with monograms, which is actually the most popular way to really personalize and decorate items with initials and different locations on garments. Now monogramming traditionally has been done for a number of years with embroidery, which obviously gives a nice high quality look and gives you that custom feel. But there's some limitations as to what items you can print and different finishes that are available. And so we're going to show you ways that you can create those same monogram looks with your heat press, offering a variety of finishes including glitters, foils, and just printing a different set of items that are fabric based. So that's traditionally what we'll be creating in this class. Now keep in mind, when you're starting to create monograms, artwork is always the largest challenge. And so what I want to cover first in this session is I want to teach you ways to create monograms using two different softwares. One is going to cover some basics in CadworxLIVE. If you haven't seen CadworxLIVE, it is our free online designer geared towards Stahls customers. If you're a customer of a Stahls company, it's free for you to access. It's a completely online base, and so it opens up a lot of opportunities for you for decorating. So we'll show you how to use that to create monograms. On the flip side, I'm also going to show you how to create some circle monograms and different items in Graphtec Studio or Silhouette Studio, which are traditionally the same type of design studio, to help you start creating artwork. Now when it comes to starting to create the artwork and create these transfers, all of these designs have been created with a heat press and a vinyl cutter. And so if you're creating a lot of custom monograms, you're traditionally going to have a vinyl cutter to cut these graphics. And so I wanted to launch a poll to see what types of vinyl cutters those of you that are on this session today actually own. So we'll go ahead and launch that now. Now of course, if you don't have a vinyl cutter, you can go ahead and let us know and just put other, or that you have an other type of machine, or that you don't have a vinyl cutter just yet. And of course you can create custom designs and send them to a custom cutting house, but traditionally you need to have a quantity of usually 6 for those types of designs. So monograms traditionally will need to be cut with a cutter in-house for you to be able to personalize and create the monogram. So we'll go ahead and ask that question now. And then once we get about 80% of you to 100%, hopefully 100% of you guys chime in here, we'll go ahead and close that poll out. So we've got a couple more seconds. All right, we'll go ahead and close it. Karen, do you have the results of the poll?
31% Graphtec, 27% Roland, 19% Silhouette, 8% GCC, and 15% other, or they don't own a vinyl cutter.
Okay, perfect. So it seems like we have a really good range of vinyl cutters, which is great because each cutter works well for this process. So the, like I mentioned, the CadworxLIVE we're going to go to and show you first will work well for the Roland or GCC, or even the Graphtec and Silhouette cutters. So we'll head over to the computer and take a look at how to create monograms using both CadworxLIVE and Graphtec Studio. So CadworxLIVE is a completely free online designer. Just go to CadworxLIVE.com and you can sign up for an account. With CadworxLIVE, we're going to be able to create a lot of monograms using some of the clip art, text, and effects that they have available. There's 3 ways to create monograms. We'll look at ways to create them from scratch, completely just adding text and adding the effects. We'll look at ways to vectorize and trace monograms by using a monogram maker, and then also using Graphtec Studio. And so the first way we'll look at this is to add text in the completely from scratch method. When adding text, I like to use a font that's traditionally bold or a script font, depending on the type of monogram that I'm creating. Now when you add your text into the editor, you want to make sure that the last initial is actually the center, because it's going to be reading exactly the way that your monogram is going to be used. Once we have that set up, I'm going to go ahead and just add my text font, or choose my font based on what I have set up. And so CadworxLIVE has a variety of fonts that are already built into the system. I can choose one of the fonts that they have available, keeping in mind that the best fonts when creating a monogram are those that are vertical and not slanted, since we're going to be adding some effects that shrink them down a little bit. I really like using the Blue Highway condensed font. That one tends to give me a nice straight vertical font that fits well into the monogram. And so I'm going to select that font out there. And then I'm going to go ahead and add an effect. And so you can add effects in the editor, such as contours or bookends, which is what I'm going to be adding to create that monogram effect that shrinks the 2 outside initials and makes it kind of like a one-piece image. I'll select the bookend that I want just by clicking the Add Effect button. grab my bookend, and then you're going to notice what that does. It's going to shrink the lowercase letters on the outside to fit the monogram that I want it to be. So once that selects my bookend, I'll be able to make any adjustments that I need to the height of the two different letters. So you're noticing at the vertical being at 50%. It doesn't seem to fit the mold that you like for a monogram, so I'm going to change both the horizontal and the vertical to 70 and make those changes just to kind of shrink the letters and make them fit into one piece. If I want to try 80 and see how that works, I can make the adjustments that I want to make them fit depending on the letters I chose. I'll settle in at 75. I think that kind of gives me a nice middle range after I looked at 70 and 80 of where I want to be. Once I have that set, I'll click OK, and that's going to drop the monogram down onto my screen. And so this is creating kind of a basic monogram just with standard block letters. Once we complete this, we'll take a look at more script versions. So I've resized my image so you guys can see it a little bit larger here as I start to make some adjustments. Now to me, the M and the W are a little bit spaced far from the center letter of the K, so I want to bring them in a little closer. I'll go up to shaping, break apart the regions, and I can either grab the item and slide it over or press the arrows on my keyboard to move it a little bit closer to where I want it to be. Now if I want to make sure I didn't make any changes to this image, I can go up to Align and select Middle, and that's going to make sure everything is still lined up center, even though I had moved some of the objects around whenever I pushed them a little closer. Now with the artwork, I do want to combine them back together just to make sure that they are going to read as one piece as I start to add different elements such as clip art and text to make it more of a one-piece monogram. So to add a circle or any type of clip art, I'm just going to select the clip art button and go in and search for the circle that I want. I'm going to use the search tool, but of course you could go down onto the left-hand side and select it through a folder as well. Go ahead and drop on the circle that has more of an outline to it, and I'm just going to resize it to fit in with the image that I'm creating. And so you're starting to see how adding the clip art and the circles and everything, whether it's a heart or any type of shape, can really make the monogram start to stand out with those block letters. And so we're seeing that a lot with the monogramming method and the ability to add those things together. So this is one way to create the clip art specifically from scratch, and this includes using the clip art tool. Now if you wanted to use clip art that was outside of the software, you could certainly bring it in, whether it would be maybe a square or some type of image that fits more of a monogram. I could bring those images just by clicking File and Import and getting that ready to go. Now to send this to my cutter, all I need to do is click File, Export, and then send it out to my vinyl cutter. Likewise, I can send photo proofs just by sending it out as a JPEG image as well. And to create an account with CadworxLIVE, all you need to do is go into the system and create the account. Now, I'm going to go ahead and download the vector cut option. If I want to send this to my vinyl cutter, I do need to have a cutter that's specifically in the software, and so CadworxLIVE comes with vector cut, which is a completely cut software that works directly on your computer. You download that, and now I can go up into the file option and export that out to vector cut. So that gives you an idea of how to create a monogram from scratch. I'm going to start deleting out the elements just by selecting them and clicking delete so we can look at how to create a monogram from using a script or a monogram font. Now this is more of a traditional way of seeing a monogram with very thin lines. To do this, I'm going to have to add more text just like I did in the first round. And so you have a few options when you're adding text. There are a ton of script fonts that are already available within CadworxLIVE.com. You could also choose to download fonts from a free font site. I particularly really like fonts from dafont.com, so I've added two into my CadworxLIVE that I'll be working with today. One of them is a cursive font, and the other one is Monogram KK. And so we'll talk about those options, but I recommend going over to dafont.com, it's just D-A-F-O-N-T, and looking at some of the free monogram fonts that they have available to put into this software. So again, I'm just going to type in my initials, my MKW, my same initials I'd used the first time. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to browse and show you what it would look like to add this cursive font into my font library that I had brought in from dafont.com. So I'll select OK, CadworxLIVE will accept any true type font into the program. Now when I click on my font, you're going to start to see the library that I've built dedicated to my CadworxLIVE system. So I can see the cursive font that I had just added in, as well as some of the other free Monogram fonts. Now the cursive font, when you're thinking about the heat transfer vinyl that you're going to be using, you're going to notice while this is a script font, it doesn't have incredibly fine detail, so it works really well for being able to get that detail without being a little bit too labor intensive with products like Glitter Flake. And so when I click another option like the Monogram KK, you'll notice how those lines are much more detailed, and so I would want to use a heat transfer vinyl with more of a sticky backing, probably something a little bit more like fashion film versus the Glitter Flake that I'll be showing you later today for these very fine detail lines. Either way, both of these make perfect options because they're completely vertical and they're not slanted, and so think of that when you're choosing a font for this as well. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and add that same bookend effect that we added the first time around. Make those adjustments to the horizontal and the vertical, so this works the exact same way that we had created this in the first time. I'm going to go ahead with 70 and 70. Again, you can play around with the percentages to see what makes it best for you. Just resize this by dragging it so you can see the artwork a little bit better there as I make the changes to editing the pieces. So shaping, break apart by regions, and then I can start to move the letters closer together. And that's going to start to create my monogram. So again, I want to make sure I didn't move anything around, so I'm going to go up to a line and then middle to make sure everything's still middled with the letter, creates a nice centralized piece. And then I can combine them together. And so you're noticing how with the script letters, there's a lot of different designs. As I switch over to the wireframe view, you'll see how they start to cut within each other. If I leave it as is, currently the vinyl cutter is actually going to cut through those other letters, so it's going to create not a uniform piece. So I'll weld it together just by clicking shaping and weld, and you'll notice how all of those areas start to really work together, and so it's one cohesive piece that'll make it easier to weed and to put together. So I'll create it a little bit larger here for you guys to see just how all the lines have really started to work together to create one piece. And so this gives you a great example on how to create a monogram using a script font. Now keep in mind you could also add those same design elements that we started to add to the other artwork as far as adding shapes and circles and all of that to create your image. Now another type that's very popular for creating monograms aside from the script fonts would be to use a circle font. And to do that, there's currently not a way in CadworxLIVE to create this font through node editing, which is something I'll show you a little bit later in GraphTech Studio. So we're going to want to look at using the monogram maker from a site called markingram.com. Markingram.com is actually a company that provides monograms, but it allows you to see the way your monogram would look. And so using this method versus the CadworxLIVE method, I'm actually going to create my initials and type them in exactly as they would read them. So rather than the K being the center, it's going to be the last one because the monogram maker knows how to adjust it for what I want it to be. Once I've typed in the same letters, and I'll use the same letters so you guys can see as the example that I showed you a little bit earlier. On the right hand side of the monogram maker, I can choose the style that I'd like. So there's a variety of styles that are available. A lot of these you could easily create yourself within CadworxLIVE. So what I'm traditionally looking for here is the actual circle maker, so I can see how it's going to change the image into one complete circle. And so I'll select enter so that it starts to show up my lettering and select my circle option. And so you're seeing how it's dropped down that monogram onto the monogram maker. So it's really quick and easy. Now what I need to do is I need to save this image down to my computer so I can bring it into CadworxLIVE and create a cuttable file. To do this, I'm actually going to be using the snipping tool that's available on any computer. And the snipping tool is going to allow me to take a quick image of it because I can't right click and save the image from this software. So I'll grab that snipping tool from my computer and just grab a quick snapshot of the entire thing. Once I have that completed, I'll need to save it down to my desktop. That way I can import it directly into CadworxLIVE. And so you can save this on your desktop or save it into a specific file. I like to throw everything on my desktop until I need it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'll go back into the CadworxLIVE design software and I'm going to use that import and vectorize tool. This tool allows you to take any JPEG image and vectorize it. So I'm going to take that JPEG that I had saved of my circle monogram and start the vectorizing process. And so this walks you through what you'll need to do. I'll select my white background layer and then select my black foreground layer. And you can select up to 9. Of course, it's just a one color design. I can also make edits such to the fit to curve or the region resolution. The fit to curve will help to make the lines a little bit cleaner if they're not showing up completely as a point or as a straight line. And so I can make those changes. I'll switch back out of my wireframe view so you guys can see this specific design and how it's kind of dropped down on there. But the wireframe view was able to show you that you can actually create this as a cuttable artwork. And so it makes a really quick and easy way to create these circle fonts. And now I can send that out to my vinyl cutter and I've got a completed design ready to send directly over to Vector Cut, which was that cut driver we had showed you a little bit earlier in the session. Once I have that set up, keep in mind that the Vector Cut driver works with a variety of vinyl cutters. So the Graphtec cutter, it works with the Roland cutter, GCC, as well as the Silhouette Cameo. So if you're looking to export out to any of these models, they're already input in there. The universal HBGL option also allows you to import in additional cutters. I know we had a couple people with Cricuts on or different types of machines. You can still use this cut driver, which is really powerful with your machine, or you could export the artwork out into a PDF or an SVG to import into your own cut driver. Now let's switch over to Graphtec Studio and take a look at how to create this circle font in something like the Graphtec Studio or the Silhouette Studio. Just like with CadworxLIVE, I'm going to type in the letters where the K is still my last initial in the middle, since I'm going to be making those edits. And I'm going to go ahead and select a font that is really blocky and very vertical. So one that I like in Graphtec Studio is the Impact font, so I'm going to select that for my lettering. Anytime you're creating a circle monogram, the lettering is traditionally going to be a block type of a vertical font. This one I think works best, so I'm going to use the Impact font. Again, I'll type in my letters, my MKW with K being in the center, and then I'm going to draw out a circle that's going to become the circling for my lettering. Once I have that completed, I'm going to drop the circle directly over top of my lettering, and I'll make it a little bit larger so we can see it here. And I want the MKW to be center of that circle. Then I'm going to start to resize the lettering vertically to start to match up more to the circle. And so I can adjust the lettering vertically as well as proportionally to make it start to fit a little bit overlapping the circle. And so what I want the letters to do is I want them to actually come over the circle a little bit, so the circle is going to cut through those letterings. And so I can start to make the adjustments to the letters that I need. That way they fit within that circle, so just overlapping a hair. Then I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to ungroup the letters, because you'll notice how as I start to size the MK and the W, it starts to become a little bit more distorted. So I'm going to move the spacing out a little bit and start adjusting the letters individually. And this is going to allow me to actually go in and edit each item separately just by going to Object and ungrouping them. So again, I'll make the K a little bit larger so it fits better within the circle. Same thing with the M. So again, they're starting to be overlapped by the circle. I can also move them closer or further away from each other to get the image that I'm looking for. I tend to like them a little bit spaced out, a little further apart. Once I have the letters completely where I want them to be, I can start to select all of the images, and I'm going to make a duplicate of my circle before I do the next step, so I can save that for the last portion of the artwork. So I'm going to select the complete letters as well as the circle, and I'm going to go up to my Object function, and what I want to do is I want to modify it. So I'll go to the right hand side of my screen, open my Modify option, and then I'm going to click Crop. And that's basically going to crop those letters to the size of the circle that they are, which starts to kind of create that circle font. Now, you'll know with circle fonts how the letters start to stretch up towards the circle, so I'm going to take that extra circle that I had made, drop it down over my letters, and I can start to do node editing within Graphtec or Silhouette Studio that allows me to pull the areas of the letters up towards the circle. And so I'll double click to open the nodes, and here you'll see I can start to stretch the lines of my letters up to that circle, which will eventually be deleted, and so that they all fit. And so I'm going to start with a W and work my way around the letters. Now I seem to find that the letters that have straight edges, such as an M, a K, and a W, work best. You may need to delete or move some more nodes for letters such as a C or a D that have curved edges in different areas, and get a little bit more creative with the node editing. But this helps to give you an idea of how to start to stretch those nodes down to the circle so that you're creating the image that you want throughout the entire artwork. And so I'll finish up the M here just by moving some of those nodes. I can now take the circle and move it off and delete it. I don't need that anymore. But that's created my complete monogram with the M, the K, and the W. And you can get creative with how you change the letters to start to create this circle font. But that gives you an idea of how you can really start to implement this and create these fonts in this software to export out to your cutter. Now, if you own the Silhouette or the GraphTech, you're already in the Cut Studio software, so I can send directly to my cutter. Portion of what you can do with your heat press. Of course, being able to heat print different items and choose different finishes is also a big part. And so that helps you to just start diving in and getting some of the basics for creating monograms with those two softwares. Now I want to walk through and show you different items we can print and different finishes. And so I'm going to head over towards the heat press to do that, and I'll grab my first item. Now, using the script font and starting to get creative, adding in more clip art like hair bows and megaphones, I've actually created a complete design out of CAD-cut fashion film, and I use that Monogram KK font. Now keep in mind, I did choose to use fashion film with that font because of the really fine detail in that Monogram font. So keep that as you're starting to think about what material I want to use with my monograms. If you're starting to get really crazy with cursives and detail, then I definitely would recommend moving more towards the fashion film heat transfer vinyl that has more of a sticky backing for the detail. I'm going to go ahead and load my shirt on here. I'm just printing a muscle tank top with this artwork. Switch to my overhead camera so you guys can see me printing this. Once I have my item loaded, I'm just going to preheat to get some of the moisture and wrinkles out. And then CAD-cut fashion film applies at 320 degrees. For 10 seconds. So this would be a really great idea to be able to put this trendy muscle tank top paired with a monogram for a camp shirt or something personalized this year. And the muscle tank tops are getting really popular for the summer, for pairing with maybe a bandeau top or a sports bra. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the CAD-cut fashion film. Set my timer for 15 seconds there and a medium pressure. The other nice thing about creating monograms with your heat press, aside from the applications you can do, is obviously cost. So being able to put a large monogram like this on a very thin tank top would be very difficult with embroidery. And so with the heat press, it allows me to do that with a neon font, with a really unique effect on a tank top for something that's really going to be trendy and fun. And so I'll take this off so we can see the final finished result. Camera back there. Now you can see how quick and easy it was to personalize this very thin, lightweight, soft tank top with CAD-cut fashion film, and it helped to create a really cool, unique effect. So this is just one start of the items you can personalize with monograms. Of course, t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, all of that's where I start. You can get really creative adding the bows and the monogram and the megaphone just to create a more personalized look. Another nice thing about monogramming is that it opens you up to start decorating more items like jackets, performance wear, things that you may not be able to decorate with an embroidery machine. When you're using the heat press, it starts to allow you to do that. And so I want to personalize a jacket. Now, as you can start to add personalization, names, monograms to more high-end items like jackets, it begins to become a more profitable opportunity for you. And the CAD-cut heat transfer vinyl with fashion film is very if you're looking about a penny a square inch. So I have somewhere around, say, 20 cents caught up into this design. And so I've got a lot of opportunity to make some money. And so I chose metallic silver to match some of the reflective metallic that's on this jacket. Now to print this as a left chest logo, I am going to have to switch out my bottom platen on the Fusion heat press. With the Fusion heat press, it has interchangeable platens. And so it allows me to switch to smaller sizes to print left chest pockets, and so I'm going to do that since I have this heat press. And if I was using a regular clam style heat press, something that wasn't with interchangeable flat ends, I could certainly print this same jacket, and I would just use a pillow or a print perfect pad, which is kind of like a thick mouse pad, to be able to raise up the print area and get the zipper and everything off of the print. I'm going to drop that 16 by 20 there, put in my 6 by 10. And this really just makes that perfect flat surface for the jacket. So now all of the zippers and all of the bulk will hang below. And this jacket from Sanmar actually has what they call a port pocket. And so it has a pocket on the side of the jacket designed for heat printing and embroidery. So it allows me to unzip that pocket, remove the liner, which can sometimes leave a mark if it gets into the way of the press and just leaves a textured feel. So now I can actually load this on through that pocket, getting a nice flat print area. So again, I'll switch the camera angle so you guys can get a look at it. As with any application that's going to be laundered, I'd like to preheat it to get some of the moisture and wrinkles out. Also allows me to double check my pressure and see if it needs to be adjusted for any reason. Once I have that lined up and ready to go, again, I'm choosing script font for this. I'm going to go through all of the script font designs as well and talk through the basics, but I chose fashion film for that fine detail. The metallic print just for a different effect. For those of you that do monogramming with embroideries, I'm sure you know the challenges with using metallic thread, and so this gives you an option that's a little bit less challenging to use since it works just like any other heat transfer vinyl. Since it's fashion film, I'm going to follow the same application as I did before. 320 degrees, 15 seconds. And a medium pressure. Peel back that carrier. And we have a completed jacket ready to go, ready to sell. I'm going to go ahead and take this off here, see if I can get it zipped up for you guys to see the nice fully finished result on this jacket. So this gives you a nice idea of what it would look like on the customer. Swap over here. And it just gives you a really nice personalized effect, very fast and very easy. And so it's really a great idea to be able to monogram with heat transfer vinyl and being able to add them to jackets and adding different print locations. Now keep in mind with this jacket, I did have to go a little bit closer towards the zipper since it has a seam going down the front. So those are some things to consider when you start heat printing different items in jackets. But that plait and those pillows, that'll help to make sure you can print those areas even with those seams. Now for my next item I want to use, this is not just a blank piece of fabric, this is actually a scarf. And so as fall football season starts to come around, one really big opportunity is to offer personalized monograms in the school colors. And so that's what I've actually done here. And of course you could offer two options. You could offer to personalize one side of the scarf with a school logo and the other side maybe with a monogram and get really creative. And I just decided to purchase a stock scarf from Sanmar, so I didn't have to make the scarf myself. But of course, if you're crafty, there's a lot of opportunity for you to start creating custom patterns and custom scarves like infinity scarves or just standard scarves like this that can be heat printed since they're just a basic fabric. I am going to go ahead and switch in, actually I'll leave this platen on for this application. I'm just going to line up my scarf here. When I'm personalizing scarves, I want to make sure I'm on the front side here, but I want to put it somewhere towards the center since it's going to drape inward for the artwork. I'll preheat just in case this is laundered. You never know, people can take their scarves out into the snow and want to be able to freshen them up a little bit. Line up my end, transfer, make sure it's the right direction because it looks identical both ways. Switch over so you guys can see that. Now you'll see here I switched to CadCut Glitter Flake. CadCut Glitter Flake, you'll notice when I switched to it, I changed back to that cursive font. So that font that was a little bit thicker and a little bit bolder, which makes it easier to weed. That really fine detail would be really challenging with a very blingy, high heat transfer or high textured heat transfer vinyl like CadCut Glitter Flake. Another thing you could do is you could actually add a contour onto your artwork or bold in the font if you were using a more scripted font to get that artwork. I'm going to go ahead and apply this for 10 seconds. CadCut Glitter Flake does apply in 10 seconds at 320 degrees. Peel back my carrier there. And we have a completed scarf ready to go, ready to sell for the school design. So it's really quick and easy. I just decided to do one quick monogram. I tend to think that those stand out the best when you're decorating onto scarves and different designs like that. Of course, you could easily do all 3 initials if you'd like, but I like the one big bold print when you're just putting it onto a scarf. I like to get creative sometimes, and I like to mix different medias, and so monogramming isn't just basic initials. You can really get fun with the bows and the clip art, and so I've done that with a mixed media design by taking the monogram and creating a glitter effect with a little bit of a bow for a child's garment. And so for that, I'm actually using a tutu onesie that I ordered from Rabbit Skin. So any supplier that sells rabbit skins, S&S Activewear was the one that I had used, will allow you to get this garment. I'm going to load the item onto the bottom platen. Careful to get that tutu tool off from the heat press since it's pretty heat sensitive. Then I can line up my transfers. And so with CAD-Cut Glitter Flake in a 2-color application, you'll notice that what I've done with this artwork is, since CAD-Cut Glitter Flake cannot be directly layered, I actually have a gap space that's in between the S where the hair bow is going to drop right down in to make that multicolor print. So to create artwork that is trapped like this, we have a ton of videos on StahlsTV.com that show you how to do that in CadworxLIVE if you haven't seen those yet. But I'm going to start with a preheat for this item before I start to press it down. And then we can talk through how to create multicolor applications with CAD-Cut Glitter Flake. Now, for multicolor applications with CAD-Cut Glitter Flake, I'm actually going to line up my glitter flake design first, so my bottom layer. Now I can't apply these together since the carriers completely overlap. So what I want to do is I just want to tack the gold layer down for 5 seconds. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to shorten my first application. This way I can peel back the carrier and I can line up my second layer. So it saves me some time at the heat press, but as I start to move to designs that are really close and being trapped together, makes it easier for alignment as well. So I'll drop that on there. Since I have heat transfer vinyl exposed that can stick to the heater, I'm absolutely going to use a cover sheet. But as I should have told you in the beginning, you should always use cover sheets with all of your designs to ensure they don't stick, or nothing from the heater before will transfer over. Peel back the carrier there, and then we have a completed onesie, which is perfect for adding monograms and personalization to children's apparel, which is a really big market. So I'll show you guys the finished result of this one in just a second, but I want to press one more design, and to do that I'm going to do one more children's wear personalized design with a bow, mixing together a heat transfer material and a standard neon color with the glitter. And so we're starting to see a lot of people mixing medias using their heat press and monograms together, and because it allows you to create these different effects by adding some different dimension to the designs and some sparkle. Now for this design, it's going to be a little bit large for this platen, so I'm going to switch out my platen to a little larger size like the 8x10. Of course, I could easily use my regular 16x20 or 11x15 platen for this as well. I like to choose the special platen size. This way I can thread the garment on and get a nice flat print area. Once I have the t-shirt centered on the platen, I can line up my first transfer. Now for this application, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do a multicolor application by tacking both layers. So I'm going to line up my fashion film first. Fashion film applies at 320 degrees for normally 15 seconds, but I'm actually just going to tack it for 2 very quick seconds. That does the same thing that it did with the glitter flake, where I can just peel the carrier back and it's already released the material. Now I'm going to overlay that with CAD-Cut Glitter Flake. Now of course I would want to make sure that both layers get the full application. But one thing you'll notice about this specific design is that the glitter flake carrier is actually cutting through my fashion film heat transfer vinyl. And so with CAD-Cut fashion film and these very thin materials, it sometimes can leave a carrier mark, which a lot of people will then recover and seal. But since I'm using glitter flake and it allows me to do that fast tack, I can just cover it up, tack the glitter flake for a few seconds like I did in the other multicolor application, peel back that carrier. So it's actually reduced that carrier mark that I would have gotten in the other application. And then I can recover it with a cover sheet and completely seal it for the full application because I want to make sure everybody gets the full durable application. So I'm going to seal it just for 10 extra seconds. I'm already at about 7 seconds for the fashion film and about 5 seconds for glitter flake, so that makes sure both of them get the full 15-second applications that they need. Remove my cover sheet, and I've got a completed design. So this is one that I see really being popular by adding the circle monogram and an oversized bow, maybe for cheerleaders or just custom apparel for children's wear. And so I'll show you this one as well as the other onesie, kind of to talk about the design and what we created here. And so with this specific garment, we just took a youth shirt and we're able to put the monogram with the hair, monogram with the bow on this specific item. Now with this shirt, again, being able to mix the glitters with a regular heat transfer vinyl and the neon really adds a pop. This color specifically was Neon Punch, which is a really cool trendy color right now. It kind of gives you a neon coral look. So one option there. And then we also had the onesie, which was from Rabbit Skins. Has a nice little tutu effect. If you're crafty, like I like to think I am, you could definitely create your own tutus to match the onesies and pair them together for a really great selling look once you've personalized them. But this works really great for any children's party that you're selling to, whether it's a birthday party or just for a new child or just for some personalized garments for maybe Christmas photos or something like that. So this is a really great option for decorating that with a two-color glitter flake. So now I'm going to move away from children's apparel to something that's a little bit different, and that's going to be creating a monogram-like design with a wine tote. And so you can start to really decorate a ton of different unique items. Of course, this session is just focusing on apparel items, but even as you start to learn how to create the monograms and you have the vinyl cutter, you can do so many things as far as with decal material, as far as tumblers and just different non-apparel applications that are really great ideas. And I think this wine tote really works well for that. Now this wine tote's actually 100% felt. It's from Sanmar as well. And it allows you to have a completely flat surface when you press it like this, as long as I can get the bulk of the bottom hanging off my platen. So I'm doing that with the 8x10 since I already had it on the press, but you could certainly do that same thing with a 16x20 or a 15x15, whatever size your press is. Now this transfer, you're going to notice I actually took not only the small circle monogram, but I created a chevron pattern in the heart design to be able to really create a unique effect. And so you can easily do this in CadworxLIVE as well. Like I mentioned, there's plenty of videos on CadworxLIVE on StahlsTV.com that'll show you how to add textures like this and to create these types of chevron prints or animal prints inside the design. Now that I have the glitter flake lined up, I am just going to go ahead and apply it down for the full 10 seconds. Need to adjust my pressure a little bit since I had put such a thick item in there. Of course, with a non-laundered item like that tote bag, I don't really need to preheat, so that saves me some steps with that. And the glitter flake as well as fashion film both stick to the felt bag just fine, so I don't have any challenges or any issues there. So I can start to personalize gifts for a variety of people. And so if you're into making and printing a bunch of different gift items, this is a really great idea for being able to personalize for the holidays or just for any time with monograms for people, and being able to really just start to maximize what you can print with the heat press and monograms. Keeping that same idea of gift giving and things that you want to monogram for people, The next item, again, is just another felt item, and so the wine tote was from Sanmar. I don't know if I mentioned that, as well as this iPad case. So this is a really nice felt iPad case. I'm going to make sure I get the silken out of there, and so that I don't burn the silica gel packets. And so I can print this a variety of ways. Since it has the snaps on the iPad case, I'm actually just going to go ahead and lay it onto the plat in the same way I did the other items, making sure the snaps and everybody are falling off. Line up my transfer. I still want to make sure that the transfer is getting a flat print area. Switch so you guys can see me there. So I still want to make sure that the transfer is getting a flat print area onto the platen. And with this one, you can see I'm going back to that block font I had used in the open of the artwork session. I am using a product called CadworxLIVE, so I'm going to cover this up for the application. And I really got creative with the clip art by adding in one of the rectangle images that we see often with monograms. And you can download those types of things or purchase those types of clip art from anywhere online and easily import them into CadworxLIVE. CadworxLIVE traditionally applies at 300 degrees for 10 seconds. I'm a little bit hot at 320, but we'll go ahead and test it out anyways. We are going to have to let it cool down completely. So we'll move that to the side so it can cool down. And then we're going to work on our final application, which is another really cool application using adhesive and foil on a bag. And so the cool thing about the heat press I love is it opens you up to being able to personalize a lot of different tote bags and items. So I just got a nice cotton duffel bag from, again, S&S Activewear. I had purchased it from. It was an MB Sport bag. So as you're printing for a lot of different groups, earlier in the session you saw that we had printed for a cheer squad using that using the mint tank top, and so I can start to package together maybe a couple tank tops and a jacket, all monogram with a bag, and really start to optimize my sale. Now you'll notice I loaded this on the 8x10 platen. Since I have a little bit of this raised ribbon from the duffel bag on the platen, I'm going to switch it to a smaller size. That way I can get those falling off of the platen. And so if you don't have interchangeable platens, keep in mind you can still do the same exact application by using a heat printing pillow or a Print Perfect pad, just like to raise up that print area like the platen I have does. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and load on the duffel bag. Find my adhesive transfer. And this is just a new CAD cut adhesive. So this material is actually a clear cuttable adhesive. So you load it onto your vinyl cutter. And it works the same way that a screen print adhesive would. So it allows you to get those screen print foil looks, but you're doing it with your vinyl cutter, which of course allows you to start doing more monogramming. Now I'm going to go ahead and apply this adhesive material down. Let me adjust my pressure a little bit. But I'm going to apply the adhesive down for 5 seconds. Peel my carrier hot, and so you can see that clear adhesive's on there, and I need to cover the adhesive with something, even though it gives it kind of a cool wet look. We do have a material called CAD Color Gloss that does give you the same effect, but this is pretty sticky, so I need to make sure to cover it with some type of foil. That way it's going to not stick to other things when it's laundered or used. And so I'm going to cut a piece of the heat transfer foil to match the size of that, and the heat transfer foil usually just comes in a really large roll. And the other thing I want to do is I want to make sure, as I'm trimming this to the size, I don't want the foil really to overlap those ribbons on the bag. So you're either going to need to cut the foil to size or let those ribbons drape over, because sometimes they can pick up a little bit of the heat transfer foil in the application. The foil is a cold peel as well, so I'm going to cover this with a cover sheet to hold it down for the application so it doesn't pop up with my heat press. I'm going to close the heat press and apply this for 10 seconds. And then once that's complete, that's going to be a cold peel as well. So I'm going to give it a second to cool down. And while we're doing that, I can bring back over, this was that iPad case we did. And I don't know if I mentioned, this product was called CAD-Cut Glaze. It's just a translucent metallic material, so it takes on the color of the item and adds a metallic sheen to it depending on what it's applied to. And so I chose silver to place onto this felt iPad case, so you can get kind of the iridescent effect that it picks up. And in this case, it's a cool metallic, so if it's a dark iPad case, it would be a really bold metallic. Of course, it does a tonal print on the gray, which is something I really like and love. Check and see if this adhesive is cooled down a little bit. I think it's going to be cold enough, so we'll start to peel that back. Here you can see how you can get that nice foil print and a monogram on the duffel bag by using that CAD-Cut adhesive and the heat transfer foil. And so I think this one's going to be my favorite for the class. You always have one when you do one of these classes, one of the items that you love the most. I chose my own initials for this one, so I could go ahead and take this home with me. So hopefully it turned out pretty good, which it looks great with that metallic foil finish on it. And this is really a cool idea for being able to add foil finishes to different items by using your vinyl cutter and the Monogram software that we've shown you today. So just to recap, I think we're getting close to the 45-minute mark, but there's a lot of things you can do with your heat press, vinyl cutter, and heat transfer materials in creating monograms and printing a variety of items. We've just touched the surface here on different items that you can create. And so I encourage you to play around with it a little bit, create some designs. We'd love to see what you are creating with your cutter and your heat press. So tag us on Instagram on any of your photos, #StahlsTV. You can follow us there as well, but that gives you some options to start really sharing and showing us what you're creating. We love to see that we're helping you guys grow your business. In addition to that, at StahlsTV.com, we have a ton of forums. So if you had questions throughout the session, maybe that didn't get answered, or just questions throughout your everyday shop life, feel free to ask those there. We're always on board, ready to answer, as well as other decorators. So I appreciate you guys joining me this afternoon. This has been a Stahls TV production. Well, thanks for watching.